Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Maverick News channel. Special broadcast tonight. Peaceman returns to discuss what we teed up last night. The deception, some of the lies that have been uncovered over time as he has taken this freedom journey with all of us. And he has learned, like many of us, that not everything is as it seems in this country, and certainly within the freedom movement as well. He'll expose some of what he has found over time, information that in many ways threatens the very existence of Canada. All this while today we see Tamar Lich and Chris Barber, two of the key figures from the Freedom Convoy, at their sentencing hearing, having those submissions by their lawyers wrap up today. And now we're looking ahead to a fall date in October for a decision on whether they will go to jail and serve more time. So we have all that and really more, because everything we're about to talk to Peaceman about weaves into many of the top news stories that are before us today. So stay with me. We have a lot to unpack and share with you tonight. Oh, also, haters to Rumble Channel 2, please. All haters to Rumble Channel 2. I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are Maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
I'm back. And so is Peaceman. Hello, sir. Welcome back. Can you hear me?
Good day. Thank you for having me.
Yes, well, thank you for returning.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, I think that the information that you have to share tonight is of extreme importance to every Canadian. And it's very difficult to know where to begin because you have so much material. It's difficult to even make sense of it because it's just the huge volume of documents. But I guess the place to start is sort of where we began and left off last night with, well, first of all, again, introduce yourself, and then we're going to tell people about Fight Club and this clandestine group, as it is self-described, that was formed and was conducting meetings online as part of the Canadian Freedom Movement. So please, Dana Lee-Melfi, just tell people who you are and what your involvement with the Freedom movement and convoy has been?
Yep, my name is Dana Lee-Melfi. I was born in Ottawa. I'm a proud Canadian. I worked for private business and government all my life. And when we seen all this COVID stuff happening, I really just couldn't sit around anymore. So I started doing a bit of investigation at the DOJ to begin with, and found that they were breaking laws through investigations that took years. And then I decided to go to Ottawa to stand on those documents figuratively, and to hold dialogue with our government, because that's what citizens were supposed to do.
So this was during the pandemic. And so the Freedom Convoy, you became aware of that and you decided to go to Ottawa at the time of the Freedom Convoy, where you stood in peace, basically in one spot for 25 days, just there
for the most part. Yep.
And you were, I guess, recording things with a video camera while you were there, holding signs, just standing there in protest, not really doing much.
Not one sign.
No sign.
All I ever had was my fingers and my flag, and that was it. I didn't put my hands on another sign because that's not my thing. I mean, you have the right to do whatever you want, but I didn't like adopting this fringe hate speech and all of this stuff from Justin Trudeau. So I just personally don't have to do it. Right.
Okay. So you were also involved for a time with James Bowder, Canada Unity. Can you just tell us a little bit about your relationship with him and his organization? Because you were on our program quite a long time ago with him. What's happened between you and him, and what was your connection to Canada Unity, which was one of the key groups that helped facilitate or get the convoy going?
Well, in early 2017, 2016, I was with my best friend, and we were watching the internet and watching what was happening in different countries. And we decided and identified that if the globalists were going to try to take over many countries, we have to look for their weakness. So their weakness was citizen-led movements, because that's the only thing that could really beat them. They have the government tied down. So I ended up watching Canada Unity as one of my main targets to look at. But I never associated with them. I didn't talk. I didn't do any of that. I watched. Then after the protest, I had a lot of people reaching out to me to help them, like from Live from the Shed, Freedom Tour, several of them. Okay. The Women for Freedom, all of these different groups, and they asked me for my help. And one of them, I get a call from this Jason LaFosse, and he asks me to be a speaker at an event for Canada Day. But he asked me at my friend's place that I promised that if she ever did anything for the freedom community, I would protect her while I was there. And that was the KOA in Renfrew. And we had about 5,000 people come through that place in a few days. So there was a lot of logistics.
When was this?
When this was 2022, right after the
convoy
protest.
Okay.
Yeah, just after. So I never had anything to do with Canada Unity up until that point. Okay. Now, when somebody asked me to be involved and they want to put my picture on a poster or whatever, I want to be in the the Zoom meetings that are getting ready for this event.
Mm-hmm.
So I asked to do that, and over a month, I seen that they weren't doing anything. And when I showed up, there wasn't even a fire extinguisher planned. Okay, so it was starting to go pretty bad. And the owners there came to me and they said, Dana, we can't have this.
Yeah.
Will you take over? We're going to fire Canada
I don't want
Unity.
to get into too much detail on a specific
No,
event.
no. But this is important.
Understand your
This is
relationship.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is how I met Canada Unity, because they got fired. And then I took over and I did all this stuff for days. Everybody had a great time. It was a really beautiful event. Then after the event, James Bowder called me directly. And he said, I want to make you a mod in Canada Unity because you like talking to people and stuff. I said, sure. So I was a mod for a long time. Then he came to me and he said, I got some concerns about Jason. Would you check up on him? So I start looking into him and I find a lot of horrible things. I'm not going to get into it. But he has horrible radio shows and stuff with huge, just very degrading language and everything else. So I share this with James Bowder. And James Bowder calls me up one day and he says, I want him removed from everything. Can you do this? And I said, yes, I can. So I will help you, but you know that this is going to come back on me. He said, no, we're going to help you, blah, blah, blah. I said, okay. Mm-hmm. So then I became the admin and he put up a big thing. And in 5 minutes, I had Jason removed from everything but the website because he pulled a little fast trick there. He transferred the ownership.
Dana, wait, we're digging into just too much detail here.
Okay, well, that's how I met James Bowder, and it was over the phone, and I never actually met him until 2023 when I flew out to Calgary. Okay, but all that time I took care of his business, never charged him a thing, just I was helping people. That was it.
And the reason I ask is just because he's a key figure in all of this. He heads up Canada Unity. He was a central figure, still facing charges. He is currently in the United States, he says, seeking political asylum from the tyranny of the Canadian government or whatever. Are you aware of any of that? And do you have any information regarding that?
Yeah. When I went to Sims, he told me he had never hired a lawyer and he didn't have any lawyers and nobody wanted to represent him. So I tried to say, well, let's get one. Let's look for one. But it doesn't interest. No, I'm going to go.
Yeah, we're losing you on the internet here. You're breaking up. And hopefully we'll get Dana back in a moment. I know there is severe weather rolling through his area. We also have really severe thunderstorm warnings in our area here as well. It may affect our internet connection tonight. Let's take a little break while we wait for Dana's connection to come back online.
Someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on Earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching.
The world is watching. On TV, the entire world is watching. On social media,
but the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching.
All right, and Dana is gone. No connection. Well, he may reconnect, so we'll just move along here. I can tell you that the sentencing hearing for Tamara Lich, Chris Barber, has, I guess, wrapped up. And a decision on a sentence is now expected October 7th. Lich's lawyer was urged the judge today to consider the positive things that came from the Freedom Convoy in downtown Ottawa, saying that the convoy, according to lawyer Lawrence Greenspan, may have saved hundreds, maybe thousands of lives, changed lives, certainly. And it was one of the largest, if not the largest, protest in Canadian history. We did see that. And that's why Dana was supposed to be here tonight and was. We were going to talk about that in more depth. Not sure what's happened to Dana, but he's gone. Okay, so we have all that. And I guess I'm just winging it tonight. Let me see what else. Have you seen the protests in Ukraine? Huge protests happening over there because of a new law passed by the government and Vladimir Zelensky, which he says is aimed at combating corruption, which was one of the key components that was going to allow Ukraine to join the European Union on the economic side, not NATO, the EU. And the provision was that, yeah, you can join the West, but you have to take care of all this corruption baked into your government after years and years and years of connections with Russia. So as he addressed that, now we're getting these massive protests. In fact, I think I've got some video here. Indeed, I do. Let me ring this up. And you might want to get ready to dial in because we might go to the phones tonight if Dana's not there. Just do a little Twitter scroll. There is video of these protests, and they're big. Again, as you can see, some people saying that the new law, it runs counter to what they actually wanted, that it is corruption. That's what it looks like. And it was protests that resembled that in some ways that really led to the destabilization of Ukraine ahead of Russia's full-scale invasion. Although we did see Russia moving into Crimea and other areas well before that. I also have to run this clip tonight of Trump at this construction site with Jerome Powell. it did. Trump really looks pretty silly in this clip. Hang on a second here. With Dana kind of not connecting, it's thrown me for a bit of a loop here. So just let me get things organized a bit, and I'll be right back.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right, still no sign of peace, man. That's okay. We'll hobble along here with the top news stories of the day, the way we normally do. Oh, by the way, don't forget that we are going to be producing our own version of War of the Worlds right here. So if you would like to participate in that it's going to be a lot of fun, and you can have a role. All you have to do is just email me and let me know that you're interested. I'll put your name on the list. I'm working out the scripting even as we speak, and I have some plot twists in mind that will make it a pretty entertaining broadcast when we do it. So we'll run the original War of the Worlds probably a week in advance, and then we'll do our own production the week after. And I'll share some history along the way around that iconic audio presentation from 1938 with Orson Welles. Pretty cool stuff. Okay. So yeah, thousands of Ukrainians have taken to the streets in Kyiv and other cities, with the protests continuing today, marking, it was really like the largest anti-government protests since Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022. The demonstrations now in their third day in response to this controversial new law signed by Zelensky, the critics say undermines the country's fight against corruption. He says it's a law for fighting corruption. The law was passed by Ukraine's parliament Tuesday, and it grants the prosecutor general appointed by Zelensky new powers over the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, or NABU, and the Specialized Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, known as SAPO, S-A-P-O. And those agencies were established after the 2014 Maidan revolution. And they've been central to Ukraine's efforts to root out high-level corruption and secure Western aid, as I indicated earlier, a path that way to integration economically with the European Union and the West. Protesters, including veterans, young activists, chanting "Veto the law" and shame, accusing the government of sliding toward authoritarianism. Some held signs today reading, "We chose Europe, not autocracy," reflecting fears that the law could jeopardize Ukraine's bid to join the European Union. European leaders, including EU Enlargement Commissioner Marta Kos, have called the move a serious step back, warning it could harm Ukraine's EU aspirations. Transparency International's Ukraine branch echoed this, urging Zelensky to reverse the law, which they say dismantles a decade of anti-corruption progress. The protests follow raids by Ukraine's security services on NABU offices with allegations of Russian infiltration. Claims critics argue a pretext to weaken the agency's independence. Dana did warn me just coming on the air tonight, just as we were getting ready to come on. He said that there was a huge storm about to roll through his area. And I think maybe the way they bring the internet to his community and to his home is via exposed wires in some places. So that may be why he has been disconnected from everything tonight. But we'll just continue along and maybe he'll be able to rejoin. So, in a dramatic and unusual scene today, President Trump visited the Federal Reserve's headquarters in Washington, D.C. to tour its ongoing $2.5 billion renovation project, joined by Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. And they don't like each other very much. The visit, marked by a tense exchange, not unexpected, highlighted ongoing friction between the two men over economic policy and the costly construction. So there they were, standing side by side in hard hats at the Mariner S. Eccles building. And I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm just not sure. So I apologize if I butchered that. But Trump claims that the renovation there costs had ballooned to $3.1 billion. Powell, visibly skeptical, is seen shaking his head and corrected the president, stating, well, I'm going to run the clip because, frankly, I think this just shows how Trump and his people tend to just make up numbers. Here it is. Here, I've got it. And this, if this isn't embarrassing, I guess the guy just can't be embarrassed. Well, I don't know. There've probably been worse things than this, but yeah, you can see that clear to me who really has the facts straight here, and it ain't Donald Trump.
So we're taking a look, and it looks like it's about 3.1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out.
Trump wants him fired.
3.1 as well.
3.1,
3.2. This came from us?
Yes. I don't know who does that.
You're including the Martin renovation. You just added
our entire capital.
Yeah, you just added in a third building is what that is. That's a third building.
Well, no, but it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago. We finished Martin 5 years ago.
It's part of the overall work.
But it's not new.
So we're going to.
It's not new. It's from 5 years ago, and he's put, like I said, he makes numbers up. It's a real number. It's just not really accurate. Oh my God. Yeah, so critics see the focus on the renovation, initially budgeted at $1.9 billion, and now $2.5 billion due to inflation and delays, as a potential pretext by Trump to challenge Powell's leadership. And White House officials, including Budget Director Russell Vought, have questioned the project's oversight, though Powell insists it has been thoroughly monitored. Legal experts warn that any attempt to fire Powell over the renovation would likely face significant legal challenges, as a Fed chair can only be removed for cause, such as misconduct. He's got to have a legitimate reason. And it's important because the Fed chair needs to act independently, free of really influence or coercion from the president, because of the economic policies that have to be administered over there. Trump later softened his stance on all of this, telling reporters he doesn't think firing Powell is necessary and described their talk as productive. However, he hinted at having 2 or 3 replacements in mind for Powell's role. The Fed's renovation, which includes modernizing outdated systems and removing asbestos, remains a flashpoint in Trump's broader campaign to influence the independent central bank, independent being the key word here. So a dire humanitarian crisis continues to unfold in the Gaza Strip, where we're seeing aid agencies, international aid agencies, warn of mass starvation affecting over 2 million people there. The United Nations and more than 100 humanitarian organizations report that Israel's ongoing blockade, intensified since March 2nd, has blocked nearly all aid, leaving families desperate and children dying from hunger. Now, we've seen reports and assertions from the Israeli side that there is no starvation. However, many media outlets reporting on this, and the images are frankly undeniable. There is starvation. People are in trouble there. The World Health Organization's Director General is calling it a man-made mass starvation. That statement coming today, him saying a large portion of Gaza's population is starving, direct quote. The Gaza Health Ministry reports 111 deaths from malnutrition since the war began, including 10 in the past 24 hours alone, mostly children. Among them was 6-year-old Yusuf al-Safadi, whose tiny body succumbed to starvation at a Gaza City hospital. The Integrated Food Security Phase classification projects 470,000 people are facing catastrophic hunger, with 71,000 children and 17,000 mothers needing urgent treatment for acute malnutrition. Food prices have skyrocketed, with a sack of wheat flour now costing up to $520, a 3,000% increase since February. And we complain about inflation here. The UN's Food and Agriculture Organization says the average Gazan consumes just 1,400 calories daily, far below the 2,300 needed to survive. Aid agencies report that food, water, and medical supplies are stockpiled just outside Gaza, but are blocked by Israeli restrictions. Now, all that while today we see that in a bold diplomatic move, French President Emmanuel Macron has announced that France will formally recognize Palestine as a sovereign state at the United Nations General Assembly in September. The decision made amid growing global outrage over the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. It marks France as the first G7 nation to take this step, potentially paving the way for other Western countries to follow. Macron, in a post on social media today, stated, "True to historic commitment to a just and lasting peace in the Middle East, I have decided that France will recognize the state of Palestine. The urgent thing today is that the war in Gaza stops and the civilian population is saved." The letter outlining the decision was presented to Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas in Jerusalem, with Abbas deputy Hussein al-Sheikh praising France's commitment to Palestinian self-determination and international law. Let me see if I can find Macron and his post. Shouldn't take me more than just a moment. I did see it briefly heading into the broadcast. And here it is right here. Yes, indeed. I can show it to you, this full statement. It will be interesting to see now what Canada does. I can pretty much predict what the U.S. will do under Trump, which at this point I think will be nothing. This may prompt Canada to take some action on this front, but there's his letter, his statement today, Macron. And it's all in French. But it's there. So yeah, as of March 2025, 147 of the 193 UN member states recognize Palestine, with France set to become the 148th. The Palestinian Authority seeks an independent state in the occupied West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza, territories Israel captured in the 1967 Mideast War. Spain, Ireland, Norway, recognized Palestine last year, but major powers like the United States, United Kingdom, and Germany have resisted, citing the need for direct negotiations. Macron's decision comes days before a UN conference co-hosted by France and Saudi Arabia to push for a two-state solution, though the U.S. has expressed opposition to unilateral recognition. The announcement coincides with escalating tensions over Gaza, where the UN reports a worsening hunger crisis, with 1 in 5 children in Gaza City malnourished now. France joined 24 countries this week in condemning Israel's restrictions on aid shipments and the deaths of Palestinians seeking food. Macron will meet British and German leaders tomorrow to discuss Gaza's crisis and ceasefire efforts. For now, France's move adds significant pressure on Israel as the war continues. All right, stay with me. I shall return.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Knights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching.
We're back. A couple of things I wanted to sort of share with you this evening. Yeah, right here. This is an interesting tidbit of a story, and I have audio to back it up, as a matter of fact. Yeah, right here. Okay. So let me get this teed for you. A lot of talk about Alberta 51. And I've been digging in, as you know, to a lot of this stuff and showing that there is definitely U.S. influence in the Canadian separatist movements, and in particular out in Alberta. Now we're seeing reports that this delegation of separatists that went to see U.S. officials last April were received with wide open arms, which I think may not surprise those who are keyed in on Trump's 51st state rhetoric and what appears to be a genuine desire to annex Canada, or at least a portion of it, and in particular Alberta, which is at the center of all of this separatist talk and what appears to be an existential threat to Canada. Well, now we're seeing that there may have been an offer of a loan, money from the Trump administration to the separatists. Here's a headline. Trump officials discussed $500 million Alberta independence loan. And this coming directly from one of the separatists, one of the members of this delegation that met Trump officials. It says here, officials in the Donald Trump administration discussed loaning the oil-rich province of Alberta hundreds of millions of dollars to help it become independent from Canada. This coming directly from a prominent separatist. This is in a publication called D-Smog. It is a U.S. media outlet, but this is a contribution from, I believe, a Canadian journalist. And this declaration or these statements come from Dennis Modry, the former CEO of the Alberta Prosperity Project. It's a group devoted to pushing Alberta towards self-determination through a provincial referendum. Now, I have pulled audio. I was able to get some audio from a couple of, well, from a presentation that Modry recently made. I believe this was back in June, after the meeting took place between the separatist delegation and Trump administration officials. So this was a speech that he gave. It was answering questions at this presentation where he discusses the money and the support that was offered, according to him, from the Trump administration.
So there's a couple of things I'd like to share with you that I didn't already. One of them was our trip to Washington on April the 22nd with Jeff Rath and I.
Yeah, Req.
So there's a couple of things I'd like to share with you that I didn't already. One of them was our trip to Washington on April the 22nd with Jeff Rath and I.
Jeff Rath,
we have the
separatist
senior
lawyer.
U.S. administrative officials, just a couple of steps away from the president himself. When we walked into the conference room, the first comment, just as we were sitting down, was, "We recognize and support Alberta becoming a sovereign nation." That was the first comment. And so there's a couple of things I'd like to share with you that I didn't already.
We get to another step.
One of them was our trip to Washington on April the 22nd with Jeff Rath and I met with senior U.S. administrative officials, just a couple of steps away from the president himself. When we walked into the conference room, the first comment, just as we were sitting down, was, "We recognize and support Alberta becoming a sovereign nation." That was the first comment. And that right now, to your point, Peter, right now, Alberta 51 isn't on the table. But it could be at some point in the future. You're absolutely correct.
And we move on now.
One of the things that were sort of interesting that we talked about was a $500 billion transition loan that we would only draw down as necessary as we work with the U.S. to transition from a province to a country. And the second thing was with respect to the U.S. currency, because we know what will happen to the U.S. dollar when Alberta leaves Canada. The dollar will sink even more than it is now. Now, in the circumstances of getting out of Canada, we get out from all federal regulation and taxation, so that means the purchase of goods and services becomes less as well. Ostensibly, your Canadian dollar, which is worth less, will still be able to buy because the price points will be lower. But the request that we made is for the U.S. to agree to take every Alberta citizen's Canadian dollar and have the bank exchange it for $1 US. So that's another thing. We'll find a deal.
Yeah, so
here
we go. Yeah. One last little section here, but I have to ask, do you guys think that doesn't that amount to some sort of foreign interference in the affairs of Canada? They're literally like, what would it cost to buy a country? $500 million. And what would that money be used for? Are we talking about after a referendum and then they provide the money? Are we talking about giving money beforehand, or has there already been money flowing? This is serious. Seems pretty serious to me. And honestly, pretty inappropriate. Inappropriate activity, in my opinion, from an ally of a country that's supposed to be our friend.
West to the U.S. But it started with a question that came to us. Would it be helpful if the President or the Secretary of State were to say anything about Alberta's sovereignty? And the response was, well, it would be if what you said were two things. Number one, that you talked about the benefit to Albertans as a result of Alberta's sovereignty. And number two, at the time of a successful referendum, you acknowledge Alberta's sovereignty to the Alberta government and to the rest of the world.
So yeah, the last portion there was, the question was, would it be helpful to have the Trump administration make public statements supporting Alberta independence, possibly a pathway to becoming the 51st state? This is stuff that people are talking about seriously, certainly in Alberta. I don't think the rest of Canada is taking it seriously enough, frankly. And I think that Trump is dead serious. Serious as a heart attack, if you want to put it that way, when it comes to annexing Canada or finding a way to at least make Alberta part of the United States. And if that happens, it's like in the center of the country. How do you then keep the country together? You have BC on the one side, you've got the rest of Canada on the other side. How are you going to keep BC at that point if you've got this division there? This is escalating. It's not going away. All right. I'll be right back.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
So Hulk Hogan passed away today. And I know that has really sent shockwaves through the world pop culture. Well, all across, certainly the United States and Canada. Let's just do a little Twitter scroll. Take a look at what how social media is reacting to this huge news. I would think that Donald Trump will have something to say about it. Hulk Hogan definitely in the Trump MAGA camp. I know at the Republican convention, heading into the last presidential election, he was probably the highlight of the entire show, if you want to call it a show. Definitely a show. Hulkamania. Linda McMahon posting tonight, I had the privilege of knowing and working with Hulk Hogan for over 40 years. Hulk was a dear friend and member of our WWE family. His legacy in and out of the ring will always be remembered. He was one of a kind. My thoughts and prayers are with his family, his friends, and all his fans. Definitely, about the kids and image, and he was, I think he was like definitely the king of wrestlers in all the years that he was active and even after. I mean, he is the face of wrestling. And there's Donald Trump, as I say, right here, saying we lost a great friend today. The Hulkster, Hulk Hogan, was MAGA all the way, strong, tough, smart, but with the biggest heart. He gave an absolutely electric speech at the Republican National Convention That was one of the highlights of the entire week. He entertained fans from all over the world, and the cultural impact he had was massive. To his wife Sky and family, we give our warmest, best wishes and love. Hulk Hogan will be greatly missed. I believe the cause of death, cardiac arrest. Forbes posting Hulk Hogan, whose decades-long wrestling career launched him to fame and helped make World Wrestling Entertainment a phenomenon, died at 71 today. The wrestler's family confirmed to the media.
And when I look out and I see all the real Americans, I think about how Donald Trump, his family was compromised. When I look out there and I see Donald Trump, I think about how his business was compromised. But what happened last week when they took a shot at my hero and they tried to kill the next president of the United States? Enough was enough, and I said, let Trumpomania run wild, brother. Let Trumpomania rule again. Let Trumpomania make America great again.
In many ways, he also became the face of MAGA. It is like it's a show, entertainment. And it's just, that is sort of the theme or the feel, the style, I guess, of the Trump administration. It's wrestling all the way. And what are we going to see at the White House? We're going to see a fight on the White House lawn. Yeah. Yeah, mixed martial arts at the White House. Oh my God. I never thought I'd see the day. It's going to happen. Dana White confirming that. You know, Doug Ford, the Premier of Ontario, also arm wrestled the Hulkster at one point. Right here. Actually, this was Rob Ford. I got to turn the audio down. We're going to get a copyright strike. This is Rob Ford, Doug Ford's brother, Premier of Ontario. Rob Ford was the mayor of Toronto. Is he going to let him win? Rob Ford passed away, or Doug Ford. Yeah, Rob Ford passed away too. A number of years back. Oh, and he beats the Hulkster. Amazing. Amazing. Toronto Mayor Rob Ford.
In 3, 2, 1.
Oh, big man. Oh, that's all you got. Oh, brother, you know something? Not only am I going to rip this arm off, I'm going to take your job while I'm at it, brother. Mayor Hogan.
There we go. Sound like getting down.
I was never much of a wrestling fan. I don't really watch wrestling, but I will say I always did have a soft spot for the Hulkster. Mr. America in many, many ways. Hulkamania. I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, just give me a moment here. All right. Okay. So those hockey players, those five players up on the sexual assault charges. I guess they were found not guilty in that trial. Ontario Superior Court, Justice Maria Caroccia has acquitted all five players. This happening today. Michael McLeod, Carter Hart, Alex Formenton, Dylan Dubé, and Callan Foote had all entered pleas of not guilty to sexual assault in this encounter that took place in London, Ontario in June of 2018 in a hotel room. And now it remains to be seen what will happen to these guys with regard to their NHL careers. They were junior players at the time of the incident. And I guess it's going to be reviewed now by the NHL. And they will be ineligible to play while the review takes place. So that's a story that has been in the background for us, but has certainly been very much in the foreground for many, many other people, especially in the hockey world. So certainly worth highlighting here tonight as it comes to at least a legal conclusion, at least for now. Not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. All these not guilty verdicts coming in. I guess there was evidence that the woman involved may have exaggerated her level of intoxication, which is some of the determining evidence presented at the trial. And I have to confess, I did not follow that case very closely as it wound its way through the courts. I certainly took note of it in the beginning, dipped into some of the information periodically, but not in an extensive way. So I'm not really in the best position to provide a lot of information on this just from the top of my mind tonight. Other than to tell you what the verdicts were, and it's like not guilty across the board. Canada's still working tonight toward an August 1st trade deal with the United States, even though I believe the U.S. ambassador is casting doubt on that. Howard Lutnick, the U.S. Commerce Secretary, was meeting, I think, or was meeting with Dominic LeBlanc, I believe, ahead of next week's tariff deadline. But LeBlanc is suggesting that a new economic security arrangement with the United States might not materialize in time for the August 1st deadline, such as it is. And I don't know how important that August 1st deadline really is. It's very much self-imposed. And as we've heard from the US side, certainly it's not about the speed of the deal, it's about the quality of the deal as far as the Americans are concerned. But what is it exactly that the Americans really want? It's pretty apparent, I think, that it isn't what it appears to be on the surface. Not by a long shot. You know, in addition to that, this brings me all the way full circle, all the way back to the ostriches. Why, Rick? Why would you want to talk about the ostriches tonight? We still don't have a verdict or a decision from the court on whether the Canadian Food Inspection Agency ordered cull of those ostriches out in Edgewood, British Columbia will proceed. Not clear when we're going to get a decision on that. We were told probably early this week. I'm surprised, honestly, that we don't have a decision on it, but we still don't tonight. We're still awaiting a decision on all this happening while we see this pressure, influence from where else? From the United States again, being applied by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and John Catsimatidis, the billionaire business dude from New York who owns WABC Radio, which also broadcasts into Canada from their powerful transmitter on the U.S. side of the border in New York, formerly the flagship station for ABC, now under the ownership of John Catsimatidis, who also is in, you guessed it, the oil business. That's why I bring this up tonight. It's worth noting because they have brought a lot of pressure to bear on the Canadian government over this ostrich issue, which people are saying, you know, we got to save these poor aminals. And John Catsimatidis on his radio show multiple times has teamed up with RFK Jr. or has cited support for RFK Jr. from RFK Jr. To spare the ostriches, talking about, you know, these claims that somehow these ostriches are unique in some way because not all of them died when they became infected with bird flu. Now, all this happened back in the winter, you know, December, January, in that time frame. Now, let me find, I'm going to show you a clip, and then I'm going to show you this letter again. Then I'm going to run another clip to kind of illustrate where I'm going with all this. This is not about the ostriches. It is, but it isn't. It's really about trade. I need to find this clip here of Catsimatidis. A lot of tabs open for the other subject matter we were going to deal with tonight. Let me see if I can find it. Okay. Here's the one clip we're definitely gonna need. So let's run this one first. This is just a couple of days ago, and this is why I'm really talking about it. It's because Danielle Smith, Doug Ford asked when the premiers are meeting to discuss trade and the economy and the Trump tariffs this week, what their opinion was on the ostriches in this news conference. So, you know, why are they talking about the ostriches at a conference where they're dealing with trade? And listen to the answer. They both are now suddenly open to the idea of sparing the ostriches. This is a clip from Rebel News.
Hi, Mickey here with Politico. This question is for Smith and Ford. I was speaking with John Catsimatidis regarding the ostrich situation in BC. He had a meeting yesterday with RFK Jr. and Dr. Oz on this matter. He essentially wants the PM to intervene in the case, and he said that he's spoken to both of you on this issue as well. Will you be applying pressure to the PM on this? And do either of you have any issues or any concerns about the federal government's treatment of farmers, particularly in this case?
Well, I have asked my agriculture minister to look into it to see if we had a similar situation in Alberta, what would we be able to do differently? And one of the things that I think is worth looking at is when avian flu went through that herd, it did kill 20% of them, but it didn't kill 80% of them. So maybe there is something to learn from whether there's an immunity or some kind of vaccine.
That's not unusual for ostriches. That's normal. As I pointed out, if you look into it and you do actual research, you will find ostriches are less prone to dying from bird flu, but become efficient carriers of the virus, which is why they can pose a real danger and can contribute to the spread of the disease. It's not that they die like chickens do, but if chickens become infected, it rips through flocks, and you're pretty much guaranteed that you're going to lose 80 to 100% of all the chickens, and they will die a slow, very painful, inhumane death. That's the bigger issue. It's not about protecting ostriches, it's about protecting chickens and the poultry industry.
Vaccine that could be developed as a result of having that flock survive. I think that maybe we have to think about different ways to do animal husbandry and animal safety, and why not try a different approach? So I'm open-minded to see if there's any persuasion on that. I gather that the U.S. government is interested in partnering with BC if they wanted to do that. I'd be supportive of that because you can see that this case has really taken on a lot of public sentiment behind it.
That's because they have names for them all 400.
And if we can find a better way than doing mass culls in any situation like this, I think it's probably worth it to try to find a better way to do it. I don't know if you've got a thought.
Yeah, no, I've talked to John many times about these ostriches. I'm an animal lover, full disclosure, and I want to do everything I can to help him. I think he had a plan to bring him down to Florida as well, and to a sanctuary down there. So anything John needs, I'm always there to support him. He's a good man. He cares for animals, and he puts his money where his mouth is, too, when it comes to making sure that he protects all animals.
Yeah, he puts his money where your mouth is. He puts his money where both their mouths are, I think. Let me show you what I mean. It's all about the money, baby. Hang on. Again, so many tabs. I need to find the right one for you. Because he wrote, we had a second letter from Catsimatidis and from RFK Jr. go out to, I'll just open it over here again. Oh, there it is right there. Okay. We had these letters. They wrote a letter, first of all, in support, and it went to the government, Canadian government. These two guys, RFK Jr. and Catsimatidis. Catsimatidis, a major donor to Trump. Tied right in to the Trump administration. Tied right in with RFK Jr. And then just ahead of this decision coming from the courts to decide if this court challenge will be successful to prevent the cull of these birds, they write a second letter. Now, here's the first portion of it, okay? And here's the most important part. Right here. The second page of the letter from Catsimatidis says here, he's the head of the Red Apple Group. They own supermarkets, and he's big into oil. He says here, on a broader level, I want to emphasize that Red Apple Group is one of the largest importers of Canadian oil into the United States. I value deeply the economic and diplomatic ties between our nations and have always believed that our shared interests go beyond trade. They include the moral responsibility to act wisely and humanely when the world is watching, which is the catchphrase that they stole from us. The world is watching. From this channel, the world is watching. Yeah, he's watching from his office in New York, and he has an office in Calgary, and he is the largest purchaser of Canadian oil, also into the supermarket business. What does that mean? It means he's tied into agriculture, food, poultry. The US government wants to put an end to supply management in our farming industries, specifically poultry and dairy, poultry being chickens. They get some legal precedent set here. See, they've applied pressure to bring the Canadian policies. They want to bring the Canadian policy on culling and the response to bird flu into alignment with this new approach that RFK Jr. is trying to implement on the US side, which will isolate the United States and Canada in terms of the way that the response to bird flu is handled, putting an end to culling, possibly in evolving because they're doing more research on the US side into vaccinating chickens. You mark my words. I'm standing by this. This is largely what it's about. It's about integrating the Canadian policies in this regard and trying to force. You see, if this happens, Canada will be isolated and we won't be able to trade probably with other nations when it comes to poultry and dairy. Not that we export much dairy to anybody. We don't. But certainly on the poultry side, yes, we do. And if they do this, we're tied to the U.S. Castamatidis bringing oil to bear here. And what's going on there? He's tied in with Alberta. He's got big money, big U.S. oil money influencing everything going on out there in Alberta. So Castamatidis sitting in his New York office, and he's exerting pressure on the Canadian government through Alberta because of the oil money that he has. I mentioned this weeks ago. Now he writes this letter and even goes so far as to highlight it in that letter. In this letter right here, he mentions it. That is a reminder that, hey, all this money, it's coming from me. I've been telling you for a long time, it's not about the ostriches per se. And a lot of what goes on in politics is not direct. You have the oil industry, U.S. oil money, pressure being applied to a premier in Alberta that is embroiled in the middle of a 51st state separatist existential threat to the entire nation. This business guy, this billionaire tied to Donald Trump and RFK Jr., exerting pressure and influence on the Alberta government, which is then applying pressure. Why did Doug Ford do all of that? Because Ford just went out and struck this new deal with Danielle Smith, where they're going to buy Ontario-built cars, and he needs support from Alberta in order to save the Ontario auto industry. So you've got the oil industry, you've got the auto industry, these two premiers trying to work hand in hand. And the threat is really coming from the other side of the border to our industries here. And so it's pressure from here to Smith. That transfers over to Doug Ford, who's in alignment with her now. So he's going to support her on the oil issue, but the oil issue is dependent on now the ostrich issue, which connects back to the poultry industry. So it's all indirect, but it's major money and influence, and it's foreign interference in our affairs. But because we're so closely aligned with the United States, a lot of people just shrug it off and say, well, whatever. They don't think about it in that way because we're so close to begin with, and our supply chains or economies are intertwined. But it is foreign interference, and it does affect our future. And it certainly will affect family farms. And so while you have all of these claims out in Edgewood, BC, coming from the farm that they're there to protect all farmers, and in particular to protect Canadian Canadian small farmers, I'm going to suggest to you tonight that it's quite the opposite. That is really what's going on here. Because if all of this happens, you're going to have the Canadian market open up to U.S. influence, in U.S. investment, U.S. takeovers. You're going to have huge U.S. agribusiness through companies like Tyson Farms, which operate these massive chicken facilities in the United States. They're going to flood the Canadian market with U.S. chickens, and they're going to force prices down. It'll make it so that small family farming operations and even smaller corporate agribusiness in Canada may not have the economies of scale to compete with the U.S. side. And you're going to see U.S. money flow up here, and you're probably going to see an end to small family chicken operations in any meaningful economic way. It's upside down, just like everything else in our society these days. That's what the ostrich thing, in my estimation, is really all about. And the evidence is right here in this letter. What does John Catsimatidis have to do with the frickin' ostrich business? Nothing. Why is he interested in it? Why did he become involved with RFK Jr., these Americans involved in this Canadian story in this remote farm up in the mountains in British Columbia? Why? Because it's all choreographed, because they have other motives, because nothing in politics is ever direct, and we're dealing with a trade war. How do you feel about that? I don't feel very good about that. I want to self-determine. I want our sovereignty. I'm a Canadian. I don't want RFK Jr. or Donald Trump or John Catsimatidis or any other U.S. politician meddling in our politics and our sovereignty and our way of life. And that's my editorial rant for tonight. And some people thought I was out to lunch, but the evidence is right there. More of it. Not a little bit. Oh, but I'm not quite done, because let me see if I can find you the clip. The other thing is, this is all based on lies. 100% lies. Because John Catsimatidis, if not lies, then falsehoods, inaccuracies. I believe it's right here. Yeah, I've got the clip here. So John Catsimatidis on his radio show has consistently conveyed incorrect information, which I would characterize at this point, if he's not aware of what the facts are, then he's got no business commenting at all from his massive, super powerful, super radio station in New York, or he's outright lying, one or the other. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt and say he's making a big mistake. But listen to what he says here on this most recent show, where he says, I think maybe we've saved the ostriches. Yeah, with your political activism which you have no business bringing into our country, frankly.
Cool, but it's a beautiful day.
Oh, that's great. You get out there for the Memorial Day weekend.
Curtis, it looks like we might have saved the ostriches.
Yeah, I saw the headlines in the New York Post. John Catsimatidis teaming up with the Secretary of the National Institute of Health, who replaced the evil Dr. Fauci, Robert Kennedy Jr. And, John, can you explain what you have done, because you have single-handedly, on the American side of this issue, move to save the ostriches from being slaughtered on that ostrich farm in British Columbia in Canada?
Well, we had a phone call at WABC a few months ago from, we have a wide audience. Canada listens to us. From British Columbia, Canada, from this lady named Katie. And she has 400 ostriches. And she got caught up in the bureaucracy of Canada. There's a lot of common sense people in Canada, but there's a few bureaucrats too. And they were, she has a farm of 400 ostriches, and 2 of them during COVID died. Like years ago. And now the bureaucrats want to destroy all 400 ostriches.
That's a lie. It's a lie. He knows. He's got to know. He says a couple of ostriches died years ago. This is like a recent project. This isn't his first go around with this. 69 died from the virus. He says they didn't test them or anything. Yeah, they did. They did. It's a lie. That's the problem with so much of what I'm encountering right now. So much lying. I don't want to live a lie. And then people are saying, Rick, you've changed. No, I haven't. I have not changed. I've always been a pursuer of truth, dedicated to the principles and the ethics of journalism. I don't always get things right. I've gone back. I've been looking at some of what I was reporting on a year ago, 2 years ago. And yeah, I guess the reporting has shifted here to some degree. But that's not because I've changed. It's only because I've caught a lot of people lying about a lot of things. And when I catch people lying, I dig deeper, not down into rabbit holes, but just down into the muck. And I search for truth. That's not truth. What's going on with this potential policy change is not truth. That is political meddling, political influence. That's big U.S. dirty oil money influencing Canadian policies, putting pressure on an adjacent industry. That is a threat to Canada. That is a threat to small farming in Canada. That is not truth. That's a blatant lie engineered to sway public opinion. And that really just doesn't sit right with me at all. You can cheer if you're on the side of the ostriches, but not me. Because something far more precious is at risk here. There's no freedom in a lie. Not one little bit. And if you choose to live the lie, then you're choosing slavery. Not me. I'll live in opposition to the day I die in order to live a life of truth. I may not be popular, but I will be free. I love you guys. I will see you back here tomorrow. Sorry about peace, man. We'll try and figure it out. But I'll see you back here tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern, on the flip side.
A shadow on the hill. Donald's back in the saddle, and he's rolling in for the kill. Elon bought him Twitter, paid $1 million. Trump's the king of 51, no make-believe around. They're playing the victim, they're crying fake news, while rigging every ballot with their billion-dollar ruse. It's Putin and his dug-in, Goebbels in disguise, dictators in the spotlight, selling pain as pride. It's the big rig, the game that breaks the rules. Freedom's just a sticker on the corporate back tools. Rolling through the north, now topple every crown. Trump's the king of 51, no make-believe around. So let the truckers roll, let the engines roar. Feed 'em lies and money, open up the coup's back door. It's Elon and it's Donald, rewriting the frontier. But the pain they leave behind will last 1,000 years. Donald, take Ray, yes, rolling strong. Democracy's a ghost, and the tyrants hum their song.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.